evening. Hello. Welcome to the Mythical Ireland Library. I'm Anthony Murphy. I am your host. This is Live Irish Myths, episode number 327. Happy Monday to you, wherever you are in the world. Pardon me. And the usual reminder, whether you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook, please do leave a comment, join in the conversation, and you'll be given a lovely warm welcome by the Mythflix to Around the World. This evening we are returning to W.B. Yeats's The Celtic Twilight, myth, fantasy and folklore, and we'll be reading more stories from that shortly. What a fabulous day it is here in the Boyne Valley. It is a little bit cooler with an easterly breeze, but the sun is shining, and we've reached that point of the year where it's not just quite happening yet, but it might happen this evening. The sun is going to shine directly in the window onto the camera lens. Of course, I have to pull the blind down to prevent me not being able to see the comments. Anyway, I hope you're all in good form. Happy Monday to you all, or Tuesday if you happen to be tuning in from the other side of the world, and we regularly do have that. First to comment tonight is Amanda June Haggerty, who says, I'm early for once, yay, and indeed so early that you managed to get first comment. Brilliant stuff. Amanda, you're very welcome. Tá fáilte roat, Taras Jock, and get comfortable. Johnny Wilson is saying a big hello from Dallas, Texas, where it's 25 degrees Celsius and stormy weather. Wow. Stormy. All evening there have been thunderstorms rattling away in the southern half of Ireland, in the Midlands, heading over towards Limerick and Kerry and Clare. Thankfully we've avoided them completely. The sky is mostly blue, a few tiny bits of cloud, but it's another lovely day, and we've had several weeks of this now, with one break where it rained on a Sunday, but other than that, and it rained overnight. It didn't even rain during the day. Tuesday Thompson is wishing everybody a happy Mythology Monday. Thank you, Tuesday, and good evening to you, Trinonoa. Brendan Byrne says, good evening, Anthony and the tour from the Wicklow Hills again. Clare was so beautiful, but I had to get used to the sun sinking into the sea on the west coast. Yeah, I can imagine it was lovely down there, Brendan. And of course, the west is warmer, because you don't have that breeze coming off the Irish Sea, and I don't think there's a breeze coming off the Atlantic so much. Sorry, I'm getting distracted here, so let me get undistracted. Linda Cosma is saying, gee, I'm excited to catch this. Hello, Amanda. A very good evening / afternoon to you, Linda, watching on YouTube. And don't forget, all of you watching on YouTube, do subscribe to the Mythical Ireland channel so that you get notified of video uploads and, of course, future live streams. Steve Martinson says, Gia Grich Eintach agus gach dinner atá vallethe an seo iniu ó himpel an dawan mór seo atá agin banachti. Gia agus Bangia Grich Steve agus Goramila Margot con an fáilte seo. And of course, yes, on Dawan Moor Show, the big wide world. And what a privilege and an honour and a thrill it is to be able to broadcast live across the world from the comfort of the Mythical Ireland Library. Rex Fortenberry says, greetings, fair citizens. It is I, Arthur, King of the Britons. No, it's just me, Rex, another name for king, but who's counting? May your days shine bright and your summer nights be friendly. Let's get mythin'. Nights, I see what you did there. Knights. Oh, yes. You know which of the knights designed the round table? It was Circumference. Monica Regley says, hello from Switzerland again. For a short time after that, I will be in the Baltics and hope to get some information about tribes, mythology, and music from those countries. Wow, brilliant stuff, Monica. You are well travelled. What I can tell you, a small amount of information from a journey, a trip to Riga in Latvia, which has to be around 20 years ago, is that Midsummer is a major celebration. Or certainly used to be. I think it still is, but historically in the Baltics they celebrate the midsummer with fires, which seems to have been a tradition extant across much of Europe in former times. Judy McQueen is saying, "Good morning from Oregon." Hello, Judy. Actually, midday, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a very slightly early good afternoon to you, Judy. What a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Anne McCallum is saying, hello, Antone, and all the mighty to us. So very sorry to hear about the deaths and devastation caused by the horrific storms and tornadoes in the US and in particular St. Louis. Hopefully all the two are well and safe. I echo that sentiment. And we're sorry that you couldn't hang around last week, but glad to see that you've caught up in the interim. The diligent student that you are, of course. And brilliant stuff. And a patron, of course, one of the Mythical Ireland patrons, Anne Scott Doherty, is saying, greetings all. Good afternoon, good evening. And from a sunny Boyne Valley, Britt Griffin is saying it's sunny up here in Northern Ontario. Needed to haul my winter coat back out because it was so chilly. Wow. In May, I know, right? Janet Moran says, hello, Anthony, from a wicked windy Boston. So there you go. Yeah, the breeze keeping some people cool. Rocio Marianne Lopez says, hi, Mr. Anthony and all the two. It's been super hot in Mexico. Everything is melting. But that's a great excuse to go for an ice cream. I agree. By the way, I've seen lots of videos of the Uisneach on my Facebook feedback from different pages and even a cameo of Mr. King in one of them. Yes, there's hardly a single Uisneach video that does not feature our own An Gawa. And rightly so, by the way. He's the king of the show. Never mind. Jacqueline Kelly Adams says, hi everyone, I hope you're all well from a rainy Pacific Northwest. Can't wait to step onto Irish soil again. 1 week to go. Brilliant stuff, Jacqueline. I hope you're all packed and ready for it. I know you'll be ready for it. Counting down the hours until the time to travel comes. Snapper Earl says, hey peeps. Good afternoon to you, Snapper. It's a pleasure to welcome you. Amanda says it's Amanda June. Even it's been cold and rainy here for weeks with the occasional hour of sunshine in the PNW. We finally have our move date. We have a place to stay in Cork starting August 28th. We are so excited. Brilliant stuff. Wow. I suppose we have been lucky with the weather when you consider we've had weeks and weeks of dry and sunny weather. Thorin is saying, hello, Anthony and the Tua, watching from Daphne, Alabama on the Alabama Gulf Coast. Looking forward to enjoying another fascinating discussion. We're very glad to have your company, Thorin. Ivania Lee says, Marina Mighty Tua from Mighty Waikato, Aotearoa. Ivania, a very good Tuesday morning to you from all of us who are still in Monday evening or whatever part of Monday other people happen to be in. Good morning to you and thank you for joining us. And I hope all is well in mighty Aotearoa. To the layman, just in case some of the viewers don't know where that is New Zealand. Leslie O'Neill is saying, happy to catch a live stream. No choir practice tonight. Hi, from a very sunny Bettystown. No choir practice. Well, that's to our advantage, Leslie, as we have your company. And well, if the sun is shining in Bettystown, it's going to continue to shine in Drogheda, since the wind is coming from that direction to this. So that's a good sign. Valentina Bernardi is saying, good evening from Glastonbury. A very good evening to you, Valentina. Welcome to Live Irish Myths. You have to jump over the fire for fortune in Latvia or Estonia. That sounds very Irish, by the way. Rory O'Brien says, good evening all. I've just spread loads of grass seed, so could do with some of that western rain. Who's the rain god in Irish mythology? Good vibes. Well, the Dagda was the one who was said to have controlled the weather and the harvest, so maybe have a word with the good man himself. Desiree Riley is saying, hello, having brunch with friends, so I'll have to watch episode later, but Amadeus is happily watching at home. Hello, Amadeus. Come here, good boy. Where's Coda? You couldn't hear Coda today? And do the whole head sideways thing. Desiree, enjoy your brunch, and we'll catch you on the rerun. Teresa Collins says, hello, Anthony Agus Antua Golair. Greetings from a balmy Killarney, where it's 15 degrees with rain in the forecast for tonight and tomorrow. Mythology Monday. Fantastic. Did you have any thunder? I thought I saw some lightning strikes on the lightning map down in the Dingle Peninsula. You may not. That may be a distance from where you are. It just reminds me I should check what the temperature is right now here. 12 degrees. So you got 3 degrees on us this evening, Teresa. Enjoy that balmy sunshine. Soak it up, and have a bit of fun. Anyway, you're all very welcome. And hard to believe we're already past the middle of May. And in terms of the old Irish pre-Christian Celtic calendar, if you want to call it that, isn't it great? We are here after Bealtaine, which means that the next festival or celebration on the old calendar is Midsummer. Midsummer's Day, summer solstice, 21st of June, followed by the later Christianized celebration of the same thing on St. John's Eve and the bonfires of the 23rd of June. Wow, yeah, it's hard to believe how quickly time is going by. The year is absolutely flying around. But we've more than a month to go to midsummer, so let's enjoy it. And let's not wish the time away. A couple of special announcements before we begin the reading. You may or may not have seen social media, as I say, has a tendency to suppress everything. And as a result, you may not have seen. But a very special tour, public tour, of the Hill of Uisneach is taking place on the bank holiday Monday. That's the 2nd of June. And that's a joint tour hosted by some fella called Anthony Murphy of Mythical Ireland and another gentleman called Simon Chute of Monumental Ireland. And this is, well, a repeat is not the right word because each tour is unscripted, therefore one is hardly likely to exactly repeat the other. But this is a repeat of a joint tour we delivered at Uisneach in August of last year. So if you are interested in an exploration of the archaeology, history, mythology and cosmology of the sacred centre of Ireland, join Simon and I on Uisneach on the 2nd of June. That's Monday. Beginning at 12 noon, and I'll just share the link where you can get your tickets for that tour. And so just to say that it's about a 2.5 hour tour of the hill and its monuments and mythology and alignments, with refreshments afterwards and a chance to chat further with your guides. You're advised to keep an eye on the weather and dress accordingly, because although we've had weeks of sunshine and dry weather, that's not guaranteed to continue. Uisneach is part of a busy working farm, so no dogs permitted either on or off a lead. Early booking advised, as there will be no walk-ups able to join the tour. Please carpool, as Uisneach are committed to keeping their carbon footprint down. And yeah, join us for tea or coffee at the conclusion of the tour. And of course, the location is the Hill of Uisneach. I would have seen some of you there for the Bealtaine Fire Festival just 9 days ago. It's a midsummer baby. Oh, I'm a midsummer baby, says Amanda June. So June is my cake month, meaning I get guilt-free cake all month. Wow, brilliant stuff. Usually when I celebrate my birthday, I just get cake on the day of my birthday, not for the entire month. So I must look into that. I couldn't make it to the Newgrange Farm tour the 30th of May. Got stuck in a brilliant session playing at the evening before in Gerteen. You had a sore head, Monica. Is that what you're trying to say? I hope you enjoyed it. Adina Sparks is in the house. Hello, Anthony and the Tua. It's a cloudy, cool day here in New Mexico, 75 Fahrenheit. So that's amazing. You call 24 degrees cool, and that's a hot day for us. That's amazing. Brilliant. Anyway, I think you probably welcome the fact that it's cloudy. A little bit of a break from the strong, hot sunshine. Catherine Cleary says, greetings to all from sunny San Diego after a sleepless night. May the reading, jokes, and good cheer keep me from drifting off. So happy to be with you all. Brilliant stuff, Catherine. And of course, we're delighted to have your company. Jokes? What jokes? Quit wishing the year away. It's going fast enough. I wasn't wishing it away. I was just saying it's going around. I can't help the fact that it's going really fast. But yeah, enjoy every day as it comes. So that's that one. The other one is, of course, the semi-regular Newgrange Farm Archaeological Park and Newgrange Chamber tours, which are taking place twice a month over the summer months. We had our first tour on Tuesday, and it was delightful. It was brilliant, a fabulously sunny day, and a lovely group of people, and a lovely tour. Now, I just want to say that if you're trying to get tickets to Newgrange currently for next Friday, that's Friday week, the 30th of May, if you go to the official website for Brú na Bóinne, the Heritage Ireland or Brú na Bóinne Admit One website, you'll see that Friday the 30th is sold out. However, our tour of Newgrange Farm includes a ticket to get inside Newgrange. So if you can't get a ticket, or you know somebody who wants to visit Newgrange in the next fortnight and can't get a ticket, send them to this link, which I'm just sharing below, to the Mythical Ireland Newgrange Farm Archaeological Park and Newgrange Chamber tour. So our next tour, as I said, taking place on Friday the 30th of May. That's Friday a week from now. And there are still tickets available for that, but they are selling fast. So if you don't want to be disappointed, get in there now. And Mavanway Millward is saying good evening all from a sunny Bristol. I hope you're all very well. I'm doing a few tours, so I'll be in and out a bit. That's perfectly okay, Mavanway. It's always a pleasure to see you and to welcome you. Just to say that the Mythical Ireland podcast has, after a bit of an absence, has started up again. Last week, I shared, what number podcast was it, actually? I can't remember which number it was. Podcast number 18, was it? No. I'll tell you now what it was. 16. And the subject was weather, crop marks, and archaeology. And that was shared with Mythical Ireland Bronze Age patrons over on patreon.com. Oh, Elaine Lingenfelter is saying hello from just outside Dunshaughlin in the county of Meath. She's about a half an hour's drive away from me. Hello, Elaine. And not first to comment tonight, but then you're not in your usual place. By the way, Johnny Wilson tells us it's 25 degrees Celsius in Dallas, but it's stormy weather. So you've come at the right time by the looks of it. And a very good evening to you, and I hope you thoroughly enjoy your tour of Ireland. So the podcasts are being shared with Mythical Ireland patrons on patreon.com/Mythical Ireland. That address where you can sign up to become a patron is scrolling along the bottom of the screen. You can join for free, but to be honest, I don't share anything with the free patrons that isn't already on social media. You need to get yourself onto the Stone Age or Bronze Age level or above in order to get the goodies. I am currently in the process over the last few days of writing the script for the next podcast, which I hope will be recorded this week. I want to show you this, but I don't want you to be able to read it. So hope this works. There you go. There's 2 pages of it. Yes, I am writing it on my typewriter. I find that I'm very productive when I write on a typewriter. Yes, I use typewriters to write a lot of my stuff. I know, mad stuff, right? So the subject of the next podcast is the endurance of myth, and how myth seems to survive all sorts of calamities in history, and to continue to be promulgated or propagated generation after generation and century after century. So if you want to enjoy the Mythical Ireland podcasts, do please consider becoming a patron at the Bronze Age level. Thank you to all the patrons who have joined in the past month. It's great to welcome you all on board. And just to say something I've been saying on and off for the last year or so is that because social media, particularly Facebook and Instagram, is unfortunately going that way too, because it's owned by the same company, Meta, they do tend to suppress a lot of posts concerning events and things like that. So it's highly likely that a lot of you didn't see the post or the 2 or 3 posts about the Uisneach tour, for instance, because there was so little reaction to them that I guessed that they had been suppressed. And in that regard, if you want all the latest, news and updates. And of course, more importantly than that, original and new writing and research and information. You can sign up for the Mythical Ireland email newsletter, and that is free to sign up to. And all you have to do is go to the mythicalireland.com website, and on any page of the website, you should see a form, a banner somewhere in the website, become a Mythical Ireland insider. And you just literally put your email address into that. It's down near the bottom of the page in most cases. For up-to-date news on dramatic discoveries, magnificent monuments, and terrific tours, join our newsletter. You can unsubscribe anytime. We promise emails are not too frequent. Yeah, it's usually one a week at this rate. But if you want to join, there's a page that you can go directly to join, just in case you can't find it. And that's mythicalireland.com/pages/newsletter. So get on there and sign up for the newsletter, where you're much more likely to hear about things like the tours, etc., that the social media companies are continually suppressing. Debbie Sheehy's in the house. Good evening, Anthony and the Mighty Two. Great to be able to join you tonight from sunny Dublin. Would love to do the Newgrange tour with you, but have somehow managed to do my back in. I'm not up to travel at the moment, but hope to join you there later in the summer when all recovered. Well, best wishes for a speedy recovery, Debbie. And yes, there are dates, of course, in June, July and August as well. So hopefully we'll see you on one of those. We look forward to meeting you again. Who else? Sue Prenter, a bit late joining you, speaking to grandchildren in Southampton. Love to all. Sue, well, that's a great excuse for being late as far as I'm concerned. Grandchildren come first, definitely. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. So, yeah. Right. Relighting the fires might be the new Facebook. In the modern world, because social media originally was intended to enable people to maintain contact with each other and share things with each other, unfortunately has become so thoroughly commercialized that you can't even watch a short, the short video clips on Facebook. Are they reels? I'm not sure if they're called reels, but the shorts. Sometimes they're only 20-second videos or 30-second videos. Sometimes they're a minute, sometimes they're a minute and a half. Well, they even have ads on those now. You watch for 15 seconds and then suddenly you're interrupted with an ad. It's ads all over the place. Recommended pages, suggested pages. They're trying to promote all sorts of rubbish. Every day on my Facebook feed, I see adverts for Threads, which is another, obviously, meta service. And every one of them is, every post that they're trying to get me to read on Threads is controversial. It's about politics or, geopolitical developments or war or something somebody said, to some controversy or other. And it's just like all the time they're trying to stoke it up and they're trying to pit us against each other. And I'm just not playing ball, unfortunately. So the very best way to avoid all of that and stay in touch with all the Mythical Ireland stuff, which is a poor word, really. But I am writing a lot, and I am sharing that with patrons first and foremost. So that is the single best way to get the best stuff. Was that a pint of Guinness or a Guinness-like mug? I'll let you guess. Hope it doesn't spill now. Yeah, it's a Guinness mug, or is that what you call those, a flask or a mug or a, yeah. Very clever, right? But it's actually 7-Up that's in it, right? Just in case anyone wants to know. Got a glass of bubbles in hand, says Sue. Nice. Share it round. Come on. She keeps a Moët and Chandon in a pretty cabinet. Let them eat cake, she says, just like Marie Antoinette. Do. Threads is absolute rubbish. Can't follow it at all. Well, I do have an account, but I don't share anything to it. And yet, it seems that when you post to Instagram or Facebook, I can't remember which one, a lot of it gets automatically reposted to Threads. But I don't use it. And to be honest, the way Meta is advertising it, as I said, it's all about it's all just trying to, as I said, it's all about trying to pit us against each other. And I said, I am not playing ball, not at all. Viking Ireland is saying evening from the top of Douth. Wow, what a place to be to watch live Irish Myths. Brilliant stuff. By the way, if you haven't heard it and you're not a Bronze Age patron, the latest podcast was recorded at Douth on a most beautiful day last Tuesday, I think it was. Not a sinner around, just me the whole time I was there. Me and the sheep and the lambs munching the grass and the sun beating down on us, which was great. We needed musical episode with Mr. Anthony singing for us as the best singer to performing nice songs. I don't know. I suspect the viewership figures would take a significant dive if I start singing too much. You have a nice voice, says Margaret Hughes. Yeah, but just not for singing. I mean, I think people have commented that, that they like to hear me reading stuff, but singing, I'm not so sure. Amanda June says, I've cancelled most of my social media now and started a Blue Sky and a Substack. I will quit Facebook once we move and settle in Cork. See, I'm not the only one. There you go, Brandon Byrne, 100% Anthony. Paul Campbell is in the house saying Anthony's appearance 2 weeks ago on the No Name Trivia Show hosted by Justin McGrail Beta has now over 2.3 thousand views. Wow, brilliant stuff. I think that was because of my fellow guest, I'm sure. At the Galway Astronomy Club AGM last Monday, I signed up for Anthony Murphy's Loch Crew tour in County Meath on Saturday, the 21st of June. I think that's only for Astronomy Club members, though, just in case we don't want to advertise that publicly, I think, or unless I'm mistaken. But anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing you there, Paul. Fingers crossed for the weather. I had a group up at Loch Crew on a private tour on Saturday, and it was glorious. Absolutely glorious. And we could see half the country from up there. It was it was a fabulous, fabulous day. Right. I think we're up to date, which means we can start reading. Yeah, and so I from time to time I have reminded you of the fact that occasionally on pre-record or old episodes, previously broadcast episodes of Live Irish Myths, I get people, very occasionally I get somebody commenting, when are you going to get to the subject? A lot of people arriving on a video and forgetting that it is a recorded live stream, and that a huge part of the Live Irish Myths experience from the get-go, remember it started during the pandemic, is making people feel welcome and, giving people a warm welcome and a big hello, and making them feel like they're part of a community. Now, I can't find it now, but about a week ago, somebody commented on an old episode. I think it might have been episode something like 146 or something like that. And they said, could you cut out the waffle and just get on with the discussion or the reading? Yeah. Do you know what my reply was? No. Yep. That's exactly what it was. Just those two, that very short word. No. Anyway, a prisoner and a sheep sitting in the same cell in prison asked the prisoner, the sheep, "Bah, you can't have done of a crime. Why are you here?" "Oh, I asked for a bit more grass." Yeah, wrong place to ask for more grass in. But you can only imagine what life is like in an Irish prison, Have you any crack, And we say that in Ireland, meaning, have you any... well, crack means fun, but, when you say to someone, what's the crack, or have you any crack, you're basically saying, well, is there anything happening with you of interest in your life? It doesn't mean, have you got any crack cocaine? It's an Irish word, C-R-A-I-C. So this story, we are now more than halfway through The Celtic Twilight by W.B. Yeats. We're going to be reading a series of shorter stories this evening. Most of them are short, in fairness. This one is called The Untiring Ones. Are you all ready? Michael Pike has just joined us at the perfect moment. At the half-hour point, it's exactly 30 minutes past 8, half past 8, and just now I'm getting to start the reading. Oh, your timing is impeccable, Mr. Pike. It is one of the great troubles of life that we cannot have any unmixed emotions. There's always something in our enemy that we like, and something in our sweetheart that we dislike. It is this entanglement of moods which makes us old, and puckers our brows, and deepens the furrows about our eyes. If we could love and hate with as good heart as the fairies do, we might grow to be long lived like them. But until that day, their untiring joys and sorrows must ever be one half of their fascination. Love with them never grows weary, nor can the circles of the stars tire out their dancing feet. The Donegal peasants remember this when they bend over the spade or sit full of the heaviness of the fields beside the griddle at nightfall, and they tell stories about it that may not be forgotten. A short while ago, they say, two fairies, little creatures, one a young man, one like a young woman, came to a farmer's house and spent the night sweeping the hearth and setting all tidy. The next night they came again, and while the farmer was away, brought all the furniture upstairs into one room, and having arranged it round the walls for the great for the greater grandeur, it seems, they began to dance. They danced on, and days went by, and all the countryside came to look at them, but still their feet never tired. The farmer did not dare to live at home the while, and after 3 months he made up his mind to stand it no more, and went and told them that the priest was coming. The little creatures, when they heard this, went back to their own country, and there their joy shall last as long as the points of the rushes are brown, the people say, and that is until God shall burn up the world with a kiss. But it is not merely fairies who know untiring days, for there have been men and women who, falling under their enchantment, have attained, perhaps by the right of their God given spirits, an even more than fairy abundance of life and feeling. It seems that when mortals have gone amid those poor happy leaves of the imperishable rose of beauty, blown hither and thither by the winds that awakened the stars, the dim kingdom has acknowledged their birthright, perhaps a little sadly, and given them of its best. Such a mortal was born long ago at a village in the south of Ireland. She lay asleep in a cradle, and her mother sat by rocking her, when a woman of the Sidhe, the fairies, came in and said that the child was chosen to be the bride of the prince of the dim kingdom, but that as it would never do for his wife to grow old and die while he was still in the first ardour of his love, she would be gifted with a fairy life. The mother was to take the glowing log out of the fire and bury it in the garden, and her child would live as long as it remained unconsumed. The mother buried the log, and the child grew up, became a beauty, and married the prince of the fairies, who came to her at nightfall. After 700 years, the prince died, and another prince ruled in his stead and married the beautiful peasant girl in his turn. And after another 700 years, he died also, and another prince and another husband came in his stead, and so on until she had had 7 husbands. At last one day the priest of the parish called upon her and told her that she was a scandal to the whole neighbourhood with her 7 husbands and her long life. She was very sorry, she said, but she was not to blame. And then she told him about the log, and he went straight out and dug until he found it, and then they burned it, and she died. and was buried like a Christian, and everybody was pleased. Such a mortal too was Cluth na Bear, who went all over the world, seeking a lake deep enough to drown her fairy life, of which she had grown weary, leaping from hill to lake, and lake to hill, and setting up a cairn of stones wherever her feet lighted, until at last she found the deepest water in the world in little Loch Ia at the top of the Bird's Mountain of Sligo. The two little creatures may well dance on, and the woman of the log and Cluth na Bear sleep in peace, for they have known untrammelled hate and unmixed love, and have never wearied themselves with yes and no, or entangled their feet with the sorry net of maybe and perhaps. The great winds came and took them up into themselves. By the way, just a footnote on that Cluth na Bear, CLOOTH hyphen NA hyphen BARE. Doubtless, Cluth na Bear should be Cailleach Bear, which would mean the old woman bear. Bear or Beer or Vera or Dera or Dera was a famous person, perhaps the mother of the gods herself. A friend of mine found her, as he thinks, frequenting Loch Leith or the Grey Lake on the mountain of the Fuse, and those mountains are in the southern part of County Armagh, near its border with County Louth, near the border between the modern Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Perhaps Loch Ia is my mishearing, or the storyteller's mispronunciation of Loch Leah, for there are many Loch Leas. Sorry, I'm just taking a margin note here. And before I get on to the next story, there have been some comments, so I'm just going to catch up. Amanda June says, I take what's the crack to mean something like what's new. Exactly. Yeah, what's the crack? Anything new with you? I must have those untidy fairies, says Rex. Johnny says, hi all. Hello, Johnny. Welcome. Watching on YouTube. A very good evening to you from the Boyne Valley. Vicky Wallace Southall is watching. Hello, my lovely friends. And hello, Vicky. And of course, to Evan and Chile, if they are watching. A big hello all the way from Ireland to you. Hope you're in good form. Brad M is saying, Faye She greetings. Hello, Brad, watching on YouTube as well. It's a pleasure to welcome you into the Mythical Ireland Library, as it is likewise for Michael P. Trott, who says Kia ora from Tuesday, 7:36 a.m. in New Zealand. To a very good morning to you, Michael, and I hope that it is a good and a promising one, abundant in sunshine and blessings and good things. Always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for joining us so early in your morning. Mariana Dunn is... No, am I right? Sorry. Never mind. Marianne is saying hello from Connecticut. A very, very good afternoon to you. Yes, waving as well. Brilliant stuff. Hello, Chile and Evan. Fantastic. The next one is not even a page long, and it is called Earth, Fire, and Water. Some French writer that I read when I was a boy said that the desert went into the heart of the Jews in their wanderings and made them what they are. I cannot remember by what argument he proved them to be even yet the indestructible children of earth, but it may well be that the elements have their children. If we knew the fire worshippers better, we might find that their centuries of pious observance have been rewarded, and that the fire has given them a little of its nature. And I am certain that the water of the seas and of the lakes, and of the mist and rain, has all but made the Irish after its image. Images form themselves in our minds perpetually as if they were reflected in some pool. We gave ourselves up in old times to mythology and saw the gods everywhere. We talked to them face to face and the stories of that communion are so many that I think they outnumber all the like stories of all the rest of Europe. Even today, our country people speak with the dead and with some who perhaps have never died as we understand death. And even our educated people pass without great difficulty into the condition of quiet that is the condition of vision. We can make our minds so like still water that beings gather about us that they may see, it may be, their own images, and so live for a moment with a clearer, perhaps even with a fiercer life because of our quiet. Did not the wise Porphyry think that all souls come to be born because of water, and that, quote, even the generation of images in the mind is from water, unquote? That's fascinating. The images of the mind and water, because of what Jung said about water being the commonest symbol of the unconscious. There is a fascinating book that I have mentioned before, and which I couldn't previously find when it came time to mention it. And although C.G. Jung and W.B. Yeats didn't correspond, as far as we know, they may have met once, I think, and didn't study each other's work. There are remarkable parallels between them. And that is explored in a book that is called, and it's above me there, I'm going to have to reach up for it. So if you bear with me for a second. So I'm going to have to reach way up high there, and I'm going to have to stand up. So in order to do that, I'm just going to momentarily stop the camera. You should still be able to hear my voice. So just bear with me a second while I do that, because I want to show you said book. And it is called The Rhizome and the Flower, the Perennial Philosophy of Yeats and Jung. And this is what it looks like. So I'm glad to say that some time ago, about 6 weeks or 2 months, or maybe even longer, because time flies, right? Myself and Anne did a rearrangement of the library, which included the acquisition of new shelving. So the library is not just now in this room. A portion of it is in the sitting room, and a portion of it is in the hall, believe it or not. The Mythical Ireland Library is constantly expanding. It's an extraordinary thing. And just when he says there about, images and water, he wrote that in 1902, by the way, before Jung had, as far as I know, written anything of note. What age was Jung in well, he lived until 1961, at which time he was about 85. So yeah, he was only just getting started in life, So I'll just very quickly read the note to the reader, which may give you some insight into this wonderful book. I haven't read the whole thing, by the way. I've sort of dipped in and out of it. But I'm just fascinated that there should be parallels between C.G. Jung, who is, I believe, still considered one of the great minds of the 20th century, although some of his psychotherapeutic methods have been superseded. A lot of what he wrote will never be superseded, I don't think. And W.B. Yeats, one of the greatest poets to come out of Europe in the late 19th and early 20th century, and certainly one of Ireland's most famous. This book is not a study of the poetry or the poetics of W.B. Yeats. It is not a study of the psychology of C.G. Jung. It is not a study of the pre-Socratic philosophers, and it is not a study of Platonism. Neither is it a study of the similarities between Yeats and Jung. I'm disappointed now. It's like I'm arguing with myself. I say this at the outset merely to discourage certain conventional but perhaps natural expectations. The book is a study of what I have chosen to call the rhizome and the flower, or in other words, a study of the perennial philosophy and of Yeats and Jung. The rhizome and the flower is, of course, concerned in part with the poetics of Yeats, in part with the psychology of Jung, in part with the manifold similarities between Yeatsian poetics and Jungian psychology, and in part with that perennial philosophy that in ancient Greece spoke the language of the pre-Socratics, Plato, and Platonism. But in the end, the various subjects merge and interpenetrate to that degree that they cannot be set off and apart from one another. Hence the unconventional shape of the book, and hence this request that readers approach this book on its own terms, not on any others. Those terms being fully described in the prolegomena, the prologue, and that they not expect the conventional in a book that in plan, in purpose, and in structure is designedly and necessarily unconventional. While it may seem that the rhizome and the flower takes a long time to get to Yeats and Jung, it should be observed that the intellectual history of the West also took a long time to reach them. And a book like the present one, which is not a comparative study but an exercise in the history and psychology of ideas, owes first loyalty to its subject. However, readers who are initially interested only in Yeats, the poet, or only in Jung, the psychologist, may, of course, proceed directly to chapter 7 or chapter 8. Those chapters do not contain anything like the entire argument of the book, but I believe they can stand on their own as essays on the poetics of Yeats and the psychology of Jung, and they may also, I hope, spark an interest in the real subject of the book, and so lead the specialized reader back to preceding chapters, the rhizome and the flower. Yeah, Brendan Byrne is saying, it must be strange for our friends from other lands to understand Irish banter. If you ask, will you help me? And I say, I will, yeah. The answer is no. I was having that discussion with a group of people up at Uisneach just before the fire was going to be lit. And there was a discussion about somebody who was, I don't know where and when, but somebody who was sort of being a bit bolshy with the security people, and the security people was asking them to move on and then refusing and the whole lot. And I said, you're much better off in these circumstances to comply, or at least indicate compliance. And you could say, as we often do in Ireland, I will, yeah, meaning I won't, no. Yeah, it's a funny one. But Brendan is referring to the idiosyncrasies of the way Irish people speak. But sometimes we mean the exact opposite of what we say, but that would not be explicit or inherently obvious if you're not part of the culture, or you don't, you haven't spent enough time among Irish people. Because sometimes when an Irish man or woman says to you, oh, I will, yeah, what they really mean is no. Either I definitely won't, or I probably won't, or I may not. The old town. I fell back to the Celtic Twilight. You wanted the author. Oh, yeah, I didn't. Anne is asking for the author. I didn't mention the author. James Olney, Olney, is the author of that book. I fell one night some 15 years ago into what seemed the power of fairy. I had gone with a young man and his sister, friends and relations of my own, to pick stories out of an old countryman. I love that phraseology. To pick stories out of an old countryman, like picking seeds out of an apple. And we were coming home, talking over what he had told us. It was dark, and our imaginations were excited by his stories of apparitions, and they may have brought us, unknown to us, to the threshold between sleeping and waking, where sphinxes and chimeras sit open-eyed, and where there are always murmurings and whisperings. So just to recall that this book was originally published in the late 1800s, 1897 or something like that, and then updated later in the early 1900s. But this is, several decades before the electrification of Ireland. So if you were out in the country at dusk and at nighttime, the only light provided would be by fire or lantern. Dark times, but bright times in a way. Monica is saying, like, follow me. I'm right behind you. Yeah, that's another good one. I'll follow you. I'm right behind you. 3 miles behind you. Yeah, right. I cannot think that what we saw was an imagination of the waking mind. We had come under some trees that made the road very dark when the girl saw a bright light moving slowly across the road. Her brother and myself saw nothing and did not see anything until we had walked for about half an hour along the edge of the river and down a narrow lane to some fields where there was a ruined church covered with ivy and the foundations of what was called the Old Town, which had been burned down, it was said, in Cromwell's day. We had stood for some few minutes, so far as I can recollect, looking over the fields full of stones and brambles and elder bushes, when I saw a bright light on the horizon, as it seemed, mounting up slowly towards the sky. Then we saw other faint lights for a minute or two, and at last a bright flame like the flame of a torch moving rapidly over the river. We saw it all in such a dream, and it seems all so unreal that I have never written of it until now, and hardly ever spoken of it, and even when thinking, because of some unreasoning impulse, I have avoided giving it weight in the argument. Perhaps I have felt that my recollections of things seen when the sense of reality was weakened must be untrustworthy. A few months ago, however, I talked it over with my 2 friends and compared their somewhat meagre recollections with my own. That sense of unreality was all the more wonderful because the next day I heard sounds as unaccountable as were those lights, and without any emotion of unreality, and I remember them with perfect distinctness and confidence. The girl was sitting reading under a large old-fashioned mirror, and I was reading and writing a couple of yards away, when I heard a sound as if a shower of peas had been thrown against the mirror. And while I was looking at it, I heard the sound again. And presently, while I was alone in the room, I heard a sound as if something much bigger than a pea had struck the wainscoting beside my head. And after that, for some days, came other sights and sounds, not to me, but to the girl, her brother, and the servants. Now it was a bright light. Now it was letters of fire that vanished before they could be read. Now it was a heavy foot moving about in the seemingly empty house. One wonders whether creatures who live, the country people believe, wherever men and women have lived in earlier times, followed us from the ruins of the old town. Or did they come from the banks of the river by the trees where the first light had shone for a moment? Fascinating stuff. There's Lynn Murphy in the house. Good evening, Lynn. How are you keeping? I hope you're in good form. And Mariana Dunn is saying Bannock all. Hello, Mariana. Thank you for joining us. You're very welcome, Anne McCallum. Very glad to share the author. You may be acquiring another book for your library, I think, on my recommendation. Either that or you can borrow it from your local library if they have it. Yes. When and where was it published? University of California Press, Berkeley and Los Angeles, California, 1980. Yeah, so this is interesting. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the rhizome and the flower again. Sorry. Should keep close to the microphone. There's nothing in here that says this is a reprint. No additional printing dates. It just says 1980. If so, it's in very good nick. It was obviously stored very well in some book distribution depot for many a long year. I mean, it's 45 years since that book was published, but it looks perfectly new. Does it even smell? No, not really. Anyway, the rhizome and the flower. Let us continue. Brendan says, I sometimes work with American crew, and they've asked me, and they have asked, sorry, I have to get this right. I sometimes work with American work crew, and they have asked, "Do we fight after work because of how we treat? Do we fight after work because of how we treat each other?" No, that's a sign of friendship and banter. I explained to a confused fellow worker, non-Irish, of course. Yeah. So sometimes it sounds like we're insulting each other to the point of fisticuffs, calling each other names. You big ugly bee and stuff like that. You effing dopey effer. And quite often that's a sign of endearment, actually. What's the name of the comedian? Did a sketch on that. I can't remember. But he said he knew how to speak Irish, and he went on to insult the other guy, and suddenly they were great friends. Movanry says, I went to a literary festival on Saturday. Not allowed any new books for a while. Is that because you bought a load at the literary festival? I can't possibly give out, because that's exactly what I would do. The Man and His Boots is the next story. Another short one. There was a doubter in Donegal, and he would not hear of ghosts or sheogues. And there was a house in Donegal that had been haunted as long as man could remember. And this is the story of how the house got the better of the man. The man came into the house and lighted a fire in the room under the haunted one, and took off his boots and set them on the hearth, and stretched out his feet and warmed himself, as you do. For a time he prospered in his unbelief, but a little while after the night had fallen, and everything had got very dark, one of his boots began to move. It got up off the floor and gave a kind of a slow jump towards the door, and then the other boot did the same. And after that, the first boot jumped again. And thereupon it struck the man that an invisible being had got into his boots and was now going away in them. When the boots reached the door, they went upstairs slowly, and then the man heard them go tramp, tramp, tramp round the haunted room over his head. A few minutes passed, and he could hear them again upon the stairs, and after that in the passage outside. And then one of them came in at the door, and the other gave a jump past it and came in too. They jumped along towards him, and then one got up and hit him, and afterwards the other one hit him, and then again the first hit him, and so on, until they drove him out of the room, and finally out of the house. In this way he was kicked out by his own boots, and Donegal was avenged upon its doubter. It is not recorded whether the invisible being was a ghost or one of the Sidhe, but the fantastic nature of the vengeance is like the work of the Sidhe, who live in the heart of fantasy. So there you go. Don't be a doubting Thomas. Couldn't help myself. It was an accident. What, you got accidentally blown into a bookstore while at a literary festival that you didn't mean to attend. You accidentally stumbled upon a website and went, "Oh, literary festival! I'm going. No, I must resist that. I must resist the temptation of this literary festival. Oh, look, I've accidentally booked a ticket and put in my credit card details. Oh, yes." But then the ticket arrives, and you're like, no, but I can't possibly go because I know if I do, I'll be tempted to buy books. But then you accidentally got blown out of your house into a taxi, out of the taxi into a train, off the train, across the platform, and to the venue where the literary festival was being held. And then you said, no, I must resist all efforts at buying books. And somebody accidentally nudged you into where they were selling the books, where accidentally your purse fell open, loads of money spilled out onto the counter, and a handwritten list of the books that you were looking for. To which the shop assistant says, "Ah, yes, madam, you were looking for a copy of The Rhizome and the Flower and W.B. Yeats and blah, 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 blah." "Certainly, ma'am." Takes the money, gives you your change, and all of a sudden, without you meaning a moment of it to happen, you've got a big bag of books and you're on your way back home again. Yes. Well, I just want you to know, Mavanwe, when you say I couldn't help myself, it was an accident, I believe you. Now, as to whether you think I'm being truthful in that matter or not is an entirely different story. I will let you make your own mind up. This just in. Police have found a getaway car with an incomplete set of golf clubs. They're still looking for the driver. The next story is called A Coward. I travelled 400 miles in my car over mountains in torrential rain to buy a spare computer part. It was a hard drive. Now, Debbie Sheehy says, "Oh, that's a brilliant story." Now, I'm not sure whether she was referring to the man in his boots, the Donegal doubter, or whether she's referring to how Mavanwe mysteriously ended up at a literary festival buying loads of books because she said she didn't mean to go there and it was a total accident. Bookshops are dangerous. I know. Yeah, yeah. I sometimes when I come home with books, my spouse and the younger of my daughters, who is very interested in history and archaeology, by the way, I'll say, what's in the bag? Did you buy any books? And I'm like, you'll never believe it. I was walking along. I mean, I went downtown. I went to the bank and I was going to buy shoes, and a gust of wind blew me into the bookshop. And suddenly I was surrounded by books, and a few of them fell into my bag, and I had to pay for them. So that is how I usually explain the sudden arrival of new books into the Mythical Ireland Library. Mavadre says, "No, I meant to go to the festival, but I didn't plan on buying the books. Picked one book up, thought about it, walked away, then came back and bought more than one." What's there's a funny meme with Gru from Despicable Me, or the little yellow fellas. What are they called? I can't remember. Oh, Anthony, how can you not remember? They're the really funny. Anyway, yeah, Gru. There's a funny meme where Gru goes into a bookshop and goes, let us buy one book, and then we see two that we like, so we buy 8, or something along those lines. Yeah. I think that several of us suffer from the same affliction, if that's the way you want to put it. A year after the invention of the hot air balloon, which was 1783, the cold air balloon was invented, but it never really took off. Minions, yes, indeed. Thank you, Mavanwe and Lily. Yes, Minions. Yeah. Yes. We walk into a bookshop, we see one book that we like, so we pick up 2, and we end up buying 8. A Coward. One day, I was at the house of my friend, the strong farmer, who lives beyond Ben Bulben and Cope's Mountain, and met there a young lad who seemed to be disliked by the 2 daughters. I asked why they disliked him, and was told he was a coward. This interested me, for some whom robust children of nature take to be cowards are but men and women with a nervous system too finely made for their life and work. I looked at the lad, but no, that pink and white face and strong body had nothing of undue sensibility. After a little, he told me his story. He had lived a wild and reckless life, until one day, 2 years before, he was coming home late at night, and suddenly felt himself sinking in, as it were, upon the ghostly world. For a moment, he saw the face of a dead brother rising up before him, and then he turned and ran. He did not stop till he came to a cottage nearby, a mile down the road. He flung himself against the door with so much violence that he broke the thick wooden bolt and fell upon the floor. From that day, he gave up his wild life, but was a hopeless coward. Nothing could ever bring him to look, either by day or night, upon the spot where he had seen the face, and he often went 2 miles round to avoid it. Nor could, he said, quote, the prettiest girl in the country, unquote, persuade him to see her home after a party if he were alone. He feared everything, for he had looked at the face no man could see unchanged, the imponderable face of a spirit. It's the smell of books that I love. I also, this is something that I think I've mentioned before, that my family, especially my siblings and my parents, used to comment on, was that when Anthony gets a new book, one of the first things he does is he smells it. And I do like the smell of a book. Yeah. Of course, I principally like reading my books, of course, but yeah. Hey. The Three O'Byrnes and the Evil Fairies. What time are we on? We're okay. Couple more. Scaly Bug. Couple of more small, short stories. I got sacked from my job at the ice cream factory because I told them I couldn't do Sundays. I think you've heard all the others, yes. In the dim kingdom, there is a great abundance of all excellent things. There is more love there than upon the earth. There is more dancing there than upon the earth. So dim, just, I suppose, just before you get the wrong idea, it doesn't necessarily mean dark. It means the hidden realm. And there is more treasure there than upon the earth. In the beginning, the earth was perhaps made to fulfill the desire of man, but now it has got old and fallen into decay. What wonder if we try and pilfer the treasures of that other kingdom? A friend was once at a village near Slieve League. One day he was straying about a rath called Cashel Nor. A man with a haggard face and unkempt hair, and clothes falling in pieces, came into the rath and began digging. My friend turned to a peasant who was working near and asked who the man was. That is the third O'Byrne, was the answer. A few days after he learned this story, a great quantity of treasure had been buried in the rath in pagan times, and a number of evil fairies set to guard it. But some day it was to be found and belong to the family of the O'Byrnes. Before that day, 3 O'Byrnes must find it and die. 2 had already done so. The first had dug and dug until at last he got a glimpse of the stone coffin that contained it, but immediately a thing like a huge hairy dog came down the mountain and tore him to pieces. The next morning the treasure had again vanished deep into the earth. The second O'Byrne came and dug until he found the coffer and lifted the lid and saw the gold shining within. He saw some horrible sight the next moment and went raving mad and soon died. The treasure again sank out of sight. The third O'Byrne is now digging. He believes that he will die in some terrible way the moment he finds the treasure, but that the spell will be broken and the O'Byrne family made rich forever, as they were of old. A peasant of the neighbourhood once saw the treasure. He found the shin bone of a hare lying on the grass. He took it up. There was a hole in it, and he looked through the hole and saw the gold heaped up under the ground. He hurried home to bring a spade, but when he got to the rath again, he could not find the spot where he had seen it. Brendan Byrne says, I'm all ears, O'Byrnes. Yeah, well, unfortunately, if you've dropped the O, then you're not an heir to the treasure. Sorry, Brendan. You must add the O back in to be officially accepted. Miriam Eckert says, the stories are much needed tonight, having a really rough couple of days. Thanks, Anthony. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Miriam. And hopefully we can do our best to lift your spirits a little bit, or a lot bit, if it must. The problem I'm finding is not keeping up with all the books I have to read. Sorry, the problem I'm finding is not keep. Yes, you're not able to keep up. That's why I'm absolutely not allowed to buy more for a bit. I know, but sure, half of what I have here is unread or dipped into very slightly. Amanda June says, I suffer from that affliction. Buying the 8 books makes perfect sense. What's the phrase? In for a penny, in for a pound? Absolutely. You can't see 3 books that you like and only buy 1. Or 8 books that you need and only buy 3, Yeah. In national school, O'Brien, says Brendan, trying desperately to claw his way towards the treasure. Yes, well, indeed, you'll have to go up to Slieve League and try your luck out in Cashel-Nor. But of course, you'll need a license for that, sir. In this day and age, it is not permitted to dig at a monument without a license from the Minister for Heritage. So good luck with that. Drumcliff and Rosses. Oh, this is a long one. Oh, that's too long. Okay, let's stop there. I do think, though, I could read very briefly. I'm just going to read to myself here. You can just watch me reading. Yeah, I'm just going to read a random passage from the Rhizome on the Flower, just to give you a taste of it, just in case some of you are sort of seeing it and going, will I click to purchase or not? Actually, is it even available? The Rhizome and the Flower. Is it available? Amazon UK, let's see. Paperback, £42. Buy used, £56.73. Only one in stock. Yeah, so it's not easy to come across. So let me just as I say, just read a random passage. What transpires in Septem Sermones is again much the same as what goes on in a vision, where the instructors, those spirits of the dead, dwelling in the Beulah land of the unconscious, achieve conscious expression in the automatic writing of George Yeats and in the very careful, far from automatic reworking of W.B. Yeats. I have a vision, don't I? I have that book. I'm sure I do. It's up there somewhere. The unconscious, quote, the unconscious can realize itself only with the help of consciousness and under its constant control, unquote, Jung wrote to a correspondent in 1937. This, I think, is one good reason, brackets, though there are others, close brackets, for Jung's fascination with the Gnostics and alchemists. They, like the dead of Septem Sermones, like the instructors and spirits for Yeats, composed a part of his unconscious and the unconscious of the psyche of the West, and Jung conceived himself in the heroic role of the light of individual consciousness to their dark collectivity of the unconscious. As Jung imagined it, Gnostics and alchemists, in their highly symbolic and obscure writings, had projected the contents of the unconscious against the face of heaven and on to the physical universe. But those works had not been understood. They had been deliberately misunderstood by the dominant Christian world. And so they had been pushed back below the surface of consciousness. Quote, Gnosticism was stamped out completely and its remnants are so badly mangled that special study is needed to get any insight at all into its inner meaning, unquote. Jung writes of the effects of the campaign directed by Christianity against its arch rival. Nevertheless, Jung claims that as a psychotherapist, he has observed symbols in his patient's dreams and visions, and in his own also, that can be traced right back under the surface of consciousness to that unconscious state to which Gnosticism was forced to retreat by Christianity 1700 years ago. Quote, "But if the historical roots of our symbols extend beyond the Middle Ages, they are certainly to be found in Gnosticism. In spite of the suppression of the Gnostic heresy, it continued to flourish throughout the Middle Ages under the disguise of alchemy," unquote. And that's from Collected Works, Volume 11. So it remained for Jung to redo in our century, that's the 20th century, what his alchemical and Gnostic predecessors had done 4, 8, and 16 centuries earlier, i.e., mine the depths and draw those contents back up from beneath the surface where history and individual prudence had forced them. It is as if the doctrines of Christianity alone were allowed to remain accessible to consciousness, and other heretical, in quotes, doctrines were forced into historical unconsciousness. It is a bitter irony of history, as Jung pointed out, that until very recently the Gnostic writings were only known from quotations put to polemical ends in the writings of Christian enemies. This had the effect of drawing a double darkness over them. Moreover, both the alchemy and gnosis, in addition to being, in Jung's view, really symbolic psychology rather than, respectively, embryonic chemistry and heretical philosophy, were quasi-mystery religions with secret doctrine for the ears and eyes of the initiated only. Hence, they were very much like contents of the unconscious, mysterious, powerful, magical, ineffable, and unknown. Here, then, the ancient unconsciousness becoming conscious in the person of Jung, posing as the long-deceased but now resurrected Basilides of Alexandria, where the East toucheth the West, preaching to his unruly, even rather disrespectful collection of the dead. In the beginning was the pleroma, according to Basilides, which was both nothingness and fullness. Over against the pleroma, which Jung elsewhere, speaking in his own voice, describes as the sphere of paradoxical existence, i.e. the instinctive unconscious. And yet, while opposed to the pleroma, also participating in it, is what the preacher calls a creatura. Creatura is not the pleroma, but in itself, etc., etc., etc. So that may or may not entice you to buy and read further. Lost Christianity, the Gnostics. 380 BC, Gnosticism was declared a heresy by Rome. The word Gnostic comes from the Greek word gnosis, noun for knowledge. It's not just something you know with your head, it's something you really, really know, being acquainted to mysterious intellectual or spiritual knowledge. Science comes from the Latin word scientia, which means knowledge. Do you know Latin writing Romans were pagan, worshipping many gods? They saw the Caimru Druids as dangerous and went on to kill Caimru Druids, that's the Welsh Druids, the only learned scribes, the glue of the community at the time. Celtic Druid / priest / spiritual glue that bound Celtic wisdom, tradition and history kingmakers, held tribes together in shared belief, power brokers, keepers of sacred knowledge. 80 BC, Gnosticism was declared a heresy by Rome. Oh, okay, that's just a double paste, as it were. The parochial history of Cornwall notes Druides, or druid. Some derive this word from Hebrew derusim or drusim, which they translate contemplatores. Nice. Contemplators. Yes, indeed. The Druids were powerful. Too powerful, perhaps, for some of the Christians. But there you are. Anyway, folks, I'm going to leave it at that for tonight. I have to go to the shop. Then I have to put the bins out. I have to continue trying to write the script of the next podcast. Don't forget that podcast will be available to Mythical Ireland patrons at the Bronze Age level and above later in the week. Although you may not be a Bronze Age patron, if you wish to access the latest podcast, which was shared for Bronze Age patrons, you can do so at the link I'm just about to share. If you're not a patron, bear in mind that a lot of what I'm sharing now, you can pay a one-off fee to access, so that you don't have to become a monthly paying patron to access. And the podcasts will be that, will be shared likewise, so that if you don't want to become a monthly patron, you just pay a one-off fee to access them. Anyway, please do, because it's if I'm to be able to continue doing all this, it's important. And there's lots more. Well, the Stone Age is the minimum I recommend, the minimum level. But if you sign up as a Stone Age or Bronze Age or Early Medieval or Silver patron right now, you get access not just to the stuff that's going to be shared in the future, but all the stuff that's been shared at that level from the beginning. And actually, my Patreon page began in 2017, believe it or not. It's a long time ago now. I think it was 2017. I'm pretty sure it was. Yes, it was indeed. So there you are. Thank you, Rex. The podcasts are fantastic. Highly recommended. Well, yes, indeed. Don't worry, Ross Theo. All in its own good time. That's all I can say. And just a reminder too that we are live every Monday at the same time. Now, occasionally, as many of you will know, I am not available on Mondays. So we have to stream on Tuesdays as an alternative. So just a little reminder about that. But if you're interested in, a lot more stuff pertaining to Mythical Ireland, of course, the website is a vast resource, and it's accessible completely without charge. And also, all previous episodes of Live Irish Myths are archived on the Mythical Ireland YouTube channel. Again, there is no payment required for any of those, and so much more. And just a reminder that subscription to the email newsletter is also free. Anyway, in the meantime, as I said, the sun is just literally, because I can see the redness in the clouds, just gone down or going down as we speak. It's amazing. It's 23 minutes past 9. And as I said, heading for midsummer. And I think distinctly from next week onwards, the sun will, for a time, be shining directly in onto the camera lens through the window. That rare time of the year, that short time of the year, when that happens. Thanks, Johnny, and thank you, Anne McCallum. Thank you, Leslie. Hope to see you soon. Also to Edina. Good night to Mavanwi. I'm going to dig into one of my new books now. Great stories. Yeah. Well, if you have them, I suppose you might as well dip into them. At the very least, although I may not get a chance to read all my books, I do dip in and out of them, which is great. Particularly for this podcast script that I'm writing. I've had to pull a fair few books down off the shelves, as you can imagine. So, and I'm delighted to hear Rex saying that. I hope the recording quality of the live stream although I have a proper microphone and all the rest. The live stream, because it's streamed rather than recorded directly to the computer, the quality is not as good, whereas the podcasts are recorded onto a broadcast quality. It's a Zoom recorder, one of the big ones, and it has a great, not dynamic range, but it has a great dynamic range, but it has a great range in terms of treble down into bass. It captures a great depth and broadness of sound. Thank you, Michael. Have a great day down there. And Ivania Lee is watching as well. Hope you both have a wonderful day in Aotearoa. Elaine, good night. And for once, we're in the same time zone and not too far away. Brendan, good night. Thanks for joining us. The O'Byrnes, looking for the treasure. Lily Shambles, thank you, Lily. All the very best. I've looked into both of those, says Ivania. Thank you, Mariana. And I hope you heal quickly and completely, Monica. Roman saw the Druids as Ivania as a dangerous element in Celtic society. The Druids desired Celtic independence. Yeah, Celtic Swan, who I didn't see earlier on, sent us a heart on YouTube. And hello to you, Celtic Swan. And thank you for joining us. Great to visit. Brilliant stuff, Michael. We'll see you hopefully again. Did not hear any wind noise. Yeah, funny enough, the wind noise wasn't as obvious on the recording as I thought it might be. But then I have a fluffy microphone precisely to dampen the wind noise. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. Anyway, we will hopefully see you all next week. In the meantime, all that remains for me to say, as usual, is Ichawa Kolosov, Slán go fóil, agus tóg go bugé, most importantly.